There are hundreds of new laws in Nevada which have gone into effect and what you should know about them. Plus,
it really helps highlight and provide that mirror onto just how kind of insane an actual grocery store can be.
From healthy sounding keywords to emotional messaging, PBS's Human Footprint visits Omega Mart in Las Vegas to unpack how we choose the groceries we buy. That's this week on Nevada Week.
Support for Nevada Week is provided by Senator William H. Hernstedt.
Welcome to Nevada Week. I'm Amber Renee Dixon. Following the conclusion of this year's legislative session, Nevada Governor Joe Lombardo signed 518 bills into law. And on July 1st, several of those laws went into effect. Joining us to explore which of those laws are most likely to affect you are Tabitha Mueller, Capitol Bureau Chief at the Nevada Independent, and McKenna Ross, politics and government reporter at the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Ladies, welcome. And Tabitha, I'd like to start with you. Where are you at the moment? No longer in Carson City, right?
No longer in Carson City. I'm actually based in Sparks, Nevada now, so northern part of the state.
Okay, what law is currently in effect that you think Nevadans need to know about?
So I think there are some of the high profile ones, right? We're talking about the Nevada Health Authority establishment, an omnibus education bill, Governor Joe Lombardo's key housing proposal, as well as a couple of other legislation. But there are two policies that I think haven't received a lot of attention. And one of those is a ban on artificial intelligence in school settings for mental health treatments. And it requires the Nevada Department of Education to develop a policy for using AI by school employees when providing therapy. So I think that one may have some large effects that we'll kind of have to see as it plays out. The other one that I'm sort of paying attention to is the requirement for the state to reimburse care for disabled or chronically ill children. So parents caring for ill or disabled children have really struggled sometimes, right? Choosing between how do I put food on the table and take care of my kid. Now they'll be able to get reimbursed for some of that care.
McKenna, same question for you. What do you think Nevadans need to know about of the laws that are right now in effect?
Yeah, sure. One that I think is really interesting is a ability for officers to confiscate firearms for people who are in mental health crisis holds. Now, that's a temporary confiscation. If a person is deemed to need a mental health crisis hold, the officers can take their firearms. They have to immediately provide that person with a receipt and with information on how to get their guns or other firearms back after their crisis ends or after they're leaving treatment. Now there are some, exceptions. They don't have to give the firearms back. They mean the officers don't have to give the firearms back if they set up a protection order or if that person isn't eligible to have a gun to begin with. But I thought that was a really interesting bill to become law because, we didn't see a lot of success in gun control measures. Several different policies were vetoed by Governor Lombardo. And so this one seems to be the kind of middle of the road common sense that Carson City lawmakers could agree on.
How difficult was it to get passed?
Well, it did pass, and it was led by Senator Melanie Scheibel and the Senate Majority Leader Nicole Cannizzaro, so they were able to champion it and get it through to the
bipartisan support?
Yes,
did it have it?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, all right. Let's go back to you, Tabitha, and I want to start with the healthcare aspect. The Nevada Health Authority, what does this mean for Nevadans who use Medicaid, for example?
So this is one of the biggest changes we've seen in Nevada to our healthcare system. Essentially, what the creation of the Nevada Health Authority did is that it puts Medicaid, the Public Employees Benefits Program, the Nevada Health Link, which is our state insurance marketplace, all under the same roof. And what officials say this is going to do is that it will basically consolidate the state's purchasing power with insurers, and they'll be able to leverage for better deals. They'll be able to have an in-house system. So if people are navigating, am I on Medicaid or do I need to get onto the public health insurance option plan that's set to roll out in 2026 or another insurance plan, it's kind of a one-stop shop for people to go to. And it's what officials have said is it'll streamline those services and access points.
McKenna, I see you nodding your head. What do you think about this bill in particular?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting because the governor proposed this first at his State of the State. It was part of a larger, effort to reform the state's healthcare system. And his policy bill, a separate bill from this suggestion or this plan to split the department, it didn't go through. It ultimately failed on sine die, but the split still was approved and is still occurring. And so I think it shows that the state really wants to find ways to streamline, as Tabitha said, and to look for ways to, give themselves better power in negotiating with insurers or with drug companies and things like that.
I was also going to add that, recent reporting that we've done has shown that because of the one big beautiful bill that moved through that was approved under President Trump's administration, we're expecting to see about 100,000 Nevadans who will lose Medicaid once work requirements kick in, which could be as early as 2020, which could be as early as 2027, but things might shift depending on, waivers, that type of deal. But what's interesting is when we talk to officials about this, they sort of pointed to the health authority as a way to find ways to innovate, help people get back onto insurance, to kind of address some of the drop off that we're going to be expecting from that program.
And people who are currently on Medicaid in Nevada, what do they need to do, if anything? I mean, is there messaging that's letting people know these are the changes that are coming?
So I think that a lot of the changes we're not actually going to see in effect until a few years from now, right? I think that's the key part of this bill that's really important to note is we're not going to see an immediate drop off. Work requirements, things are slowly phased in over the next 9 years. When that happens, obviously the state, different agencies, they're going to have to be on the front lines getting out that messaging. We've already seen newspapers, publications, those types of deals saying, hey, here's what you need to be aware of. Now, as this kind of rolls out, we'll start to see people will need to renew their Medicaid. They're going to have to re-enroll. They'll have to say, I'm proving that I am working. Here are the requirements. There are some exceptions for people too.
That can be a lot of work, a lot of red tape for people that they should be aware of, could be coming down the pipeline. McKenna, what are bills that were passed this past session, signed into law, that have yet to go into effect that you think people need to be looking out for or aware of?
Yeah, one that I thought was really interesting was some provisions that will require the state to come up with regulations for employers who have outdoor workers during times of wildfire smoke. Now, this is to, of course, reduce the risk of exposure for those workers. So the law is partially in effect in that the regulators are starting to develop those regulations to put forward to employers, but the actual requirements say, that doesn't have to start until January 1st of 2026. But that'll be really notable for folks who work outside. That's everybody you can think of in the summertime with summertime jobs, or landscapers, door-to-door folks, salesmen, even people at the newspaper, like our photographers. They're outside a lot, and so these regulations will require employers to come up with, settings that they have to, bring those workers back inside at certain levels if it's unhealthy for certain groups, or if the air quality is, truly unhealthy for everyone. And also will set up, communication channels for the employers to bring that information to their employees and in the training for those new employees.
I would ask the same question of you, Tabitha. What are you looking ahead to? What should Nevadans be aware of is coming down the pipeline?
I think one of the biggest changes, and maybe I'm jumping ahead of myself here, is surrounding education, right? There was an omnibus education accountability measure that was passed this session that was a joint bipartisan effort from Senate Majority Leader Nicole Cannizzaro and Republican Governor Joe Lombardo. And this bill does a lot of things, right? We're talking $21 million for services for pre-K, and we're also talking about transportation, other services to schools. But the biggest change that I'm paying attention to is accountability for school districts. So school districts that are low performing, underperforming, they're going to have to publish performance improvement plans. They're going to be put on a system where they could be on probation. So I think that, and then there are steps and consequences for if they don't improve. And that's something that I think is going to have a major effect on our education system.
What are those consequences?
So essentially what this is that underperforming districts and schools that are determined that for 2 years they don't make progress, the state superintendent can step in. And essentially what the state superintendent will do is they'll say, hey, you have failed to demonstrate progress. We can cut funding. We can reallocate resources. They can replace school leadership. I mean, these are massive changes that could happen if these schools don't show improvement, especially with Nevada's ranking as one of the worst in the nation for our education system.
Another aspect of that bill that I think puts more control into the hands of parents is the open enrollment process, and there are changes to that. What are they, and when do those go into effect?
So the open enrollment process changes are going to happen in the next few years. We're likely to see that. I think it's in not this school year, but in 2027, I believe. I'd have to triple check the language on it. But essentially what that open enrollment will do is it'll make it easier for students from low performing schools to attend a school outside of their zone area. It also includes a $7 million appropriation to provide those students transportation. And that was kind of a key negotiation point because I think Democrats really were nervous about the budget this legislative session, especially with federal changes coming down. We didn't have a good idea of where things were. So any allocation of money was taken very seriously and sort of said, okay, what do we actually need versus what is a nice to have?
Okay, McKenna, REBA's law. What does it do, and what is the backstory into how it came to be?
Sure. Well, we'll start with the name, Reba. Reba is, or I should say was, an English bulldog that a couple taped into a plastic tote bin and left behind a building. And Reba was found, this was about last summer, Reba was found and they tried to extend her life. Unfortunately, she did pass away. And so the outcry from that event, made people ask for harsher penalties for animal cruelty. That was just so inhumane that the public outcry was very strong for it. So Assemblywoman Melissa Hardy, a Republican from Henderson, she proposed this bill that would strengthen animal cruelty penalties. And so it's a pretty interesting story at the legislature. It actually failed its first deadline. So there are, a couple different deadlines through the session to move things along, and it failed that first deadline. But the outcry from advocates in the Las Vegas area was really strong. And so the Democratic leadership in the legislature ultimately decided to revive it, bring it back. By Monday, it was exempt from deadlines, and the conversations could continue. And so the bill ultimately moved through the Assembly and the Senate with largely bipartisan support, and they, like I said, they increased animal cruelty penalties, and they also added some detail on what to do if you find an animal in a hot car, or I guess it could apply to a cold car as well. But of course, here in southern Nevada, we see that that question of what to do if you see an animal that's locked in a car and you're worried about how hot it gets in a car. So this sets up the process.
What is that process?
So first, the citizens should call authorities, let them know, I see an animal in a car. You got to, of course, check to see there's no other way to get that animal out. Okay, it's a locked car. So call authorities, and you can let them know that you're going to do what might be, deemed reasonably necessary to take the animal out of the car. And it shields the citizen from criminal or civil liability. So I guess you could say if you were to break a window, and as long as you're staying with the animal and staying near the car, waiting for those, authorities to come and deal with the situation and finish it out, then you can be, you can do that without fear of, prosecution or something like that.
Tabitha, with your years of experience covering Nevada politics, what did you make of this story and how this bill got passed? What do you take away from that?
I think you take away the fact that it matters when you call in and you talk to your representatives, right? I mean, that bill was dead. It's the kind of those deadline days are coming in. You're like, oh, that's dead. We're moving forward. But it also shows that anything can survive, right? And that there's always changes that come down at the last minute. And leadership said, okay, this is clearly an issue the public cares about. This is something that folks are advocating for. Let's do our best to bring it back to the people.
And McKenna, how would you describe the level of public outcry?
Oh, they're a very passionate group of people who wanted it to be discussed. And And I think it just goes to show that folks want to see their lawmakers pay attention to the issues that they care about. And of course, taking care of our pets and our animals is a priority for a lot of folks.
What was the argument against passing this?
I don't think there was really an argument against so much as they wanted to really get into the nuance. Some of the senators, or at least one senator, I should say, that did end up voting against the bill said that he believed that the penalties were too harsh, that they were on par with, some physical assaults or assaults against women, and so he was like, I think that what we have on the books is enough.
Which was what? I think it was 4 years maximum.
That sounds about right.
And now it's up to 6 years.
Up to 6, correct.
Okay. Yes, I mean, I do remember some people talking about there are people convicted of child abuse who don't end up serving that much time. So
Right.
who are we prioritizing here? But
Right.
people love animals. I know I do. What are you working on now?
Well, now I'm looking at the upcoming Attorney General's race. The Senate Majority Leader Nicole Cannizzaro announced her intention to run for Attorney General just yesterday on Tuesday. And so the story is really interesting because it puts two Democrats in the primary. That's her and our state treasurer, Zach Conine, have thrown their hat into the ring for the race that is, next November.
Yeah.
Well, their primary is a little sooner than that in June, but for that general election race next November. So we're already looking ahead.
Two high-profile Democrats in Nevada. Tabitha, last question for you. What do you make of that race?
I think it's really interesting because we don't often see that high profile of a race in the primary for Attorney General, right? Usually it's pretty set on who the Democratic contender is, who the Republican contender is. I think that race in particular is going to be one to watch this as we head into the election.
All right, Tabitha Mueller of the Nevada Independent, McKenna Ross, Las Vegas Review-Journal, thank you for joining us. We move now to a new episode of the PBS docuseries, Human Footprint. In it, biologist Shane Campbell-Staton makes a stop in Las Vegas to explore how supermarkets have reshaped our lives and planet. Nevada Week's Maria Silva sat down with the creative director of Omega Mart to find out why Human Footprint decided to feature the immersive art experience.
My first time here at Omega Mart. You guys are getting a lot of national attention, international attention. We did have Human Footprint here not too long ago, showcasing you guys. Talk to us about that experience. How did all that come about?
Yeah, Human Footprint, I think the producers were big fans of Meow Wolf, and when they were looking at the way that mass production, food, and humans kind of impact on the earth as a result of that, as they were exploring that topic, they knew that we had done sort of a satirical take on those exact mechanisms and supply chains and things like that. So they reached out to us and interviewed one of our co-founders, Emily Montoya, who's really a big visionary behind this specific concept of Omega Mart.
Growing up, I was always just fascinated by being in a grocery store and just this sense of like comfort and abundance and like you can get anything you want. It's all here. Getting older, you start to sort of ask questions as like, well, how did all these things get here?
And what is the concept for someone coming in here for the first time? What can we expect?
Well, I always like to say we are America's most exceptional grocery store. I think that sort of tells you everything and nothing at the same time, and I think that's the way Omega Mart as a fictional entity likes to operate. People also, kind of always ask, is it an actual grocery store? No. Is it a gift shop? Not really. Is it a satirical take on capitalism through an immersive art installation? Nah, maybe not. Maybe it's all of that kind of mixed together and none of that at the same time, But hopefully what it is a way for you to experience something that feels familiar and new at the same time, and something that sort of shakes you out of your day-to-day. Yeah.
It is eye-opening.
Yeah, and hopefully when you go back to a grocery store and back into your normal context, you're kind of seeing things with a fresh light, you're being a little more present and noticing more the sort of absurdity that's all around us, and as Emily said, is like weirdly normalized.
And consumerism, a big theme in this human footprint. You mentioned also mass food production. Packaging is also another huge theme that they discuss. But as I'm thinking about this and as I watch that episode, I am going to see things differently when I go to the grocery store. And they talked about cereal from when we were little kids. That has also been marketed to kids.
Yeah, and so you'll see, I mean, our graphic designers, we have hundreds of artists that worked on this exhibit and extremely talented at sort of taking those things that, again, we just sort of like accept the way that cereal is marketed towards kids, the way it's happy and bright and colorful, and then we just subvert and twist that a little bit, you know? We've got Oh Those, the cereal, and our charms in that are things like a stapler, you know, and just these sort of absurd things, you know, and it kind of makes you realize, like, what are we really getting when we buy these things?
Another thing that they discuss is the fact that grocery stores haven't been around for a century. That wasn't how we got our products. And now when you walk into a grocery store, thousands and thousands of items.
Yeah, so much. And I mean, our exhibit is very maximal in that sense too. And I think it has this, you know, again, this familiarity, but it's also quite overwhelming. And, you know, every detail you look at, you just realize the level of intention, you know, that's gone into this exhibit. And again, it really helps highlight and provide that mirror onto just how kind of insane an actual grocery store can be, and the emotions they're pushing on you, and the way they're,
And that was something really interesting, and you brought that up. Emotions. These companies they tune into that, and they know, how can I get so-and-so to buy this? And they market it to that, and they tap into those emotions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I can show you, like, one of my
do.
favorite products here that we offer is called Humane Orchard. And the idea behind this, which is actually just an apple juice, but we sort of create this fictional world where we let the fruit die a humane death. We let it choose when it falls off the tree, so that you know, it has a choice. And this is what we call cruelty-free juice. So, you know, fruit tastes better if it dies when it wants to.
And those key words, right? When we go to the grocery store.
Cruelty-free.
Or cruelty-free, organic, cage-free.
We have to make such fast decisions, or we feel we have to make such fast decisions. I think that's another component of what the kind of design and packaging is doing in grocery stores. But it's like, it really, I think this kind of product highlights that we're just sort of looking for a reason to make a decision that helps us kind of feel good for a moment, even if we don't understand the full story or how absurd that might actually be. Yeah.
Now, how long have you been with Omega Mart?
I've been with Omega Mart for 2.5 years.
And you started as an artist. Let's talk about how hundreds of artists are involved in this, many of them local artists.
Yeah, I was a local artist. I was commissioned, I have a background in sculpture, so I built a diorama for the exhibit, not in the grocery store itself, but more beyond. And when I stepped into this role, for me, it was an amazing learning and growth opportunity in understanding the kind of power of graphic design and how all those things can sort of mix and create this cool environment here.
And let's talk about some of the other artists that are involved here, and how do you guys reach out to them? Do they come to you? What?
Yeah, we have a mixture of collaborating and in-house artists. So we have space where we'll invite local and national artists to kind of create and express their own work. And then we also have a team of in-house graphic designers, sculptors, painters, product designers who are working on the merch, like for Omega Mart. We're constantly evolving and changing out the products and things like that.
What do you hope people take away when they do walk here into Omega Mart? You have been voted best immersive attraction, but it's so much more than that.
When people visit Omega Mart, what I really hope is that they kind of come away, or they feel sort of like put into this space where they can examine their own life and their own experiences in a very non-judgmental way. Like, it just sort of is meant to open a conversation with yourself and with the folks around you of how does this make me feel? How do I engage with it? You know, we don't want to be overly like preachy with a lot of our products. We want to really just invite that conversation through a real like show, not tell approach, if that makes sense.
It does. So you've been here about 2.5 years. What have you learned in those 2.5 years about this concept?
So much. I think that Omega Mart as an art expression is something that is quite difficult to master because, as we talked about, there's a lot of subtlety and nuance in the way we stay inviting and the way we kind of poke fun or tease and the satire we engage with, like a lot of times it goes quite deep. And I think that I've just learned sort of how deep the rabbit hole goes in creating something that just feels so cohesive. Yeah.
You guys are always reinventing yourselves and new immersive experiences. What can we expect that we can come in here and check out?
Yeah, well, right now over the summer, for the next several weeks, this is going through August 9th. I've noticed some bizarre characters showing up to shop at Omega Mart. They've shown up to help pull off this thing we call the Phenomenomally. Our Phenomenomally is this really cool migration of this otherworldly little creature, and we've got a troupe of about 15 performers, clowns, dancers, puppeteers, bringing this sort of magical story to life that comes on top of the existing exhibit.
And I feel with you guys, just from walking around, that there's a hidden message in there. What are you hoping that your guests take away when they do come and experience
Phenomenomally?
Yes. Phenomenally.
I think that we're hoping to sort of highlight the beauty that happens when strangers gather and build a sense of community. We hope to highlight the power and energy of human performance and connection, and the real wonder of spending time with one another. And we do that, through these incredible dance pieces, puppeteered moments, and hilarious clowns.
Oh, I love that. Phenomenally.
You got it.
I got it.
You got it.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You can watch new episodes of Human Footprint Wednesdays at 9 p.m. right here on Vegas PBS, or watch anytime on the free PBS app. We want to thank you for watching, and I will see you next week on Nevada Week.